Okay, so there's a couple things that I want to talk about. Um, One being Me Too movement, and two being women's rights movement. And I'm not an expert. I'm not a you know person out there fighting for something in particular right now. And I mean, you might have very valid points and things that I'm not thinking about. I might be ignorant to certain things. But as far as I'm concerned with the Me Too movement, number one, Me Too. Okay. Like, I'm not somebody sitting there on the sidelines watching all these bitches go, what are they talking about? I'm somebody going, yeah, me too. And um, I guess the thing that I want to talk about, is not necessarily what I went through, but what's going on right now. I hear a lot of people bitching, complaining, oh, these girls are just looking for their, 10 minutes of fame, 15 minutes of fame. So they're, saying, oh, me too, and this is what happened or whatever. And then, people are saying, oh, yeah, they just want their 15 minutes of fame. That's not true. It's complete bullshit. It's not real. I can't say either way. I can't say that these are people just looking for fame. There are those, because we all know that. But there's also people that really went through things, that decided that they weren't going to be a victim and they were going to move on and they weren't going to say anything. I was one of those. Uh, you know, I would I watch TV and I watch these things, stories about kids being abused and things happening. And for the longest time in my life, I just sob. I sob. I cry. I cry. I cry every time I see these things. And for me, I always thought it was empathy. You know, damn, somebody that age shouldn't feel those things. And then I started realizing that it was my pain and my hurt kind of coming through in these things as well. I have I have a few horrible stories of things that have happened to me when I was a child, as far as sexual abuse. And it was never internal. It's never my family. They were, you know, amazing. They were never any of that. It was external. It was always external. I had a neighbor that was like his grandson was like my brother's best friend growing up, and um, I had a teacher who was the teacher to my brother and my sister. And my brother and my sister ranted and raved how amazing this teacher was. But when it came to me, he tried to touch my cooch under his desk. The neighbor, it was the grandfather. He wasn't the neighbor per se, but he came from Cuba, and he came to visit, and then he eventually stayed or whatever. And that guy, like, every time I'd hug him, he grabbed my boob, you know. Um, yeah, so me too, you know. And I think the worst one that I have to tell about, which I've really kept secret for a very long time in my life, was that I used to be a crazy runaway. I ran away all the time. I get pissed, fuck you, run away, you know. And I used to have a police officer that was a caseworker, or my caseworker, let's say, the police officer that was dealing with me. I don't know. That's how I understood it at the time. And he gave me his card or whatever one time that I ran away, and I came home and he said, if you ever run away again, call me. I'll pick you up. We'll bring you home. Da da da. Yeah, a safe place, a safe thing. You have this here. Hold this card. So I did. Like, for the longest time, I had that card in my purse or my little wallet. I never wore purses. I always had wallets because I'm cool like that. But I ran away and I ended up at a runaway shelter, and I was there, and like, these ghetto biatches were trying me and wanting to fight me, and this is supposed to be a safe place. It's a runaway shelter. It got really bad really quick. So I took off like at 2 or 3 in the morning. I was like, I'm done. I'm not gonna be here anymore. And by the way, this was like in Florida City, and if you guys don't know, Florida City is like a part of South Florida, souther than Miami, between Miami and the Keys, and it's where I lived. And um, it was bad. It was bad. It was the ghetto. It was not in a good place. But my dumb behind decided that I was just going to leave the shelter right now. It's either fight these girls or take off. And I took off. Not that I couldn't take it, because I could have laid it down, but I wasn't going to do it. I was done. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to do it. So I walked like literally 2 miles, pitch black, 2, 3 in the morning, to the ghetto's police station. And trust, I probably like 3 or 4 cars stopped and asked me if I wanted a ride. A couple guys were like yelling at me, "Hey, mommy, come here." Made it to the police station by the grace of God, and only by the grace of God. Because I wouldn't recommend that for anybody at any time. No, that was the most stupidest thing I ever did. But I made it to the police station. I gave the front desk police officer lady the card, and I said, I'm 15 years old. I'm a runaway. And this is the guy handling my runaway case. Case is. And can you please call him? Because I know he's going to take me home. She calls him. And it wasn't even like a formal thing. Like the cops didn't even really take me in, take my information. This is runaways, 15-year-old right here. Right? None of that happened. They called the cop. I saw him pull up. I walked out to see him. Like, it was so informal. Like, they would never even tell you that I was there. And he picks me up. I'm like, hey, I just want to go home. I'm done with all this runaway stuff. And the guy tells me, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I can take you home and wake up your parents and, the drama that's going to happen because we're showing up now. Or my roommate is a firefighter and he's not home now. He's on his 3 days on or whatever. And you can sleep in his room, and in the morning, I'll take you home. And my stupid 15-year-old brain, instead of dealing with the wrath of my parents, decided to trust this guy. You get lost, you trust the police officer to bring you back home. You get sick, you trust the doctor to make you better. Very antiquitized mentality, and I know I didn't say it right. So my 15-year-old dumbass brain said, okay, that sounds good. Let's do that because it'll less stress and we'll show up in the morning and my dad will be at work and it'll just be my mom and it'll be easier and better. Let's just do it like that. So I go to the guy's house. Well, before we even made it there, he stopped at Circle K over there on US 1, on the other side of US 1, 88th Street by the bomb shelter. And he stops at a Circle K and he gets some beers or whatever. I didn't think much of it. He's a grown adult. He can do whatever he wants. I wasn't thinking like anything that he was going to try to do or try to get me drunk or anything like that. I didn't think of that. I was just like, fine, whatever. We stop at the Circle K. We go to his house. And I'll never forget, he had like this TV on a cart that he kind of pushed into the living room. And he's like, want to watch TV for a little bit? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's watch TV. Rosemary's Baby was on. And he says to me, do you want a beer? At that time in my life, I didn't drink. I mean, maybe I had a wine cooler. I don't know. It was way before my Mad Dog years. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll have a beer. I was 15. And I'm drinking the beer. And I'm watching Rosemary's Baby. And I remember that whole scene, like, where there were all these people and they were about to look at the baby. And, like, that's the part where, like, Rosemary gets really scared because she sees, like, some demon baby or whatever. But I remember them all going to like look at the baby, and I'm like drinking a sip of the beer. Nothing after that. I don't remember nothing. I don't remember a damn thing after taking one sip of a beer. I woke up the next morning handcuffed to a bed and being told to go take a shower. And then he took me home. And instead of like taking me to the door and saying, you know, she's back and all this whatever stuff the police officer should have done, he just kind of dropped me off. And I did the walk of shame to my front door. And because I had been a runaway, the last thing I was going to say was that, you know, I just allowed this to happen to me. It took me like 10 years to bring it up to my mom. And this is after I had kids and I was an adult and I had a conversation with my mom and I told her what happened. Well, my mom encouraged me to say something. She's like, you have to say something. She's like, I'm either going to call the cops right now and we're going to like deal with this, or you're going to just go ahead and say something. So I sent an email to the police department and I said something. I never heard of anything. I didn't hear it back, nothing. You know, she'd asked me and I said, Mom, I said something. I sent them a message. I let them know. And eventually it disappeared and nobody talked about it and it went away. About 17, 18 years later, I didn't get a phone call. I got a phone call from my dad because the house that I was living in at the time when I sent that email was at my dad's house. And my dad's like, dude, the cops just showed up like at 2 o'clock in the morning looking for you. What's going on? This is the number. Call this place. You know, call them. Figure it out. So I'm like pregnant with my son or it might have been Fiona. I don't know. I was pregnant with one of them. And like I said, you know, 17, 18, 19 years later. And I call them and the detective literally tells me, we had somebody say that this person, this police officer, did something to them. And they're retired now. They're not even a cop anymore. And reviewing their file, we saw an email that was printed out and put in his file. And it was your email of your claims or whatever. And this is in Miami, and I live in Georgia now. And I said, yeah, I sent that a long time ago, 2006. This is like 2013. And I said, yeah, I sent that a long time ago. I just felt like I needed to be heard, and I said something to make myself be heard, and I never thought about it again. And the female detective goes on to say that somebody else had already, or two people, whatever, had said similar things, and in reviewing his file, they found my email, and 3 detectives flew to Georgia to put this case together. So these detectives are sitting at my table and they're asking me all the questions, and I'm telling them everything about what happened and things like that. And I'm sitting there pregnant, like huge and pregnant in my new life, and I didn't even need closure anymore. I hadn't even thought about it in so many years. And they start asking me questions, and it was like, yeah, he was like an after work detective, overtime at Miami-Dade. I'd seen him working there. So they narrowed it down, as far as like the pictures were concerned, because they gave me a lineup of pictures of police officers that it could have been, even though they knew who this police officer was. So I'm going through the pictures or whatever to kind of like point him out for them to make my story legit. And I'm going through the pictures and I see his face. The butterflies in my stomach, the anxiety, the just literally like pure fear crept up in me. I hadn't felt this in so long. I'm in the happiest place in my life. I'm about to have a baby. These detectives are in my house. And I saw his picture. as I'm going through the other pictures, and they asked me, "Do you see him?" And I said, "No. No, I don't see him." But I saw him. I saw him and I remembered him and I knew exactly who he was. I remembered the mole on his face. I remembered it all. But I said, no, I don't. And the reason I did that was because at this point in my life, I didn't want to get dragged back into that. Like my empowerment, I'm not a victim, I'm moving forward. I'm handling my life. I'm putting myself first. I'm putting my family first. I'm doing things that I need to do for me now. You're not going to drag me back into this story. You should have dealt with it when I sent you the email back in the day because I had my mom to back me up, and to enforce me and to fill in those fears and to encourage me. I don't have her now. And I don't, now that I've gone this far, why do I want to go back? So to make a long story short, I said, no, I don't see him. And then they moved on with their case, however they did. I wasn't a good witness. I wasn't a good whatever. And they moved on. But does that mean that it wasn't Me Too? And then at the same time, does Me Too mean that we have to bash men now? I saw this video about this girl that the guy opened the door for her or whatever, and she was all pissed. The guy opened, I don't need you to open my door. I'm a made woman. I'm capable. What does one thing have to do with the other? What does women empowerment have to do with being fucking rude as crap? Like, why do we... Dude, if he opened the door for me or she opened the door for me, I'd be grateful. Thank you. And I'd go on. Why not does it have to become a thing? And, not only that, but, we have ancient people living with us, There's, 80-year-old men that are going to try to open the door for you, and all of a sudden you're going to become a biatch because he's opening the door for you, which is what he was raised to do, to be a proper person and a gentleman. Now you're going to start saying, this person thinks that I'm not capable because I'm a woman. I have a couple, really. No, I want to say more than a couple. I'm sorry. Thought about you and thought about you. More than a couple women that are amazing. Self-starters. Independent. Bosses that have made it. I know, you know what I'm talking about. And I guarantee you, if she walked through a door making 6 figures a year, and she walked up to a fucking QT and some old man tried to open the door for her, she'd say, thank you, and walk through the door instead of thinking this guy's trying to suppress me as a woman. Yeah, Me Too. Yeah, a lot of girls or men or whatever are trying to jump onto that. But yeah, also that opened a conversation for women that have been abused or men that have been abused and have not had a place to speak, and this gives them a voice. She spoke up. I can speak up too. That exists. They're not all gold diggers. They're not all looking for the 15 minutes of fame. And not all the men that are being accused have actually done something beyond, girl, look at that butt, because they all do it. But there's a line, and not all of them crossed it. So I wasn't in that moment, and I wasn't in that situation with these celebrities and these things that are coming up or whatever, but I'm not going to dog somebody for coming out 30 years later, 20 years later, 15 years later, because sometimes God opens up the path for your truth to come out, and it's time for you to speak it, and then you speak it. And sometimes the truth is coming out, and people are looking at that like, damn, I can jump on that bandwagon and make some money or benefit myself in some way, and they jump on it. But I kind of look at a sexually abused victim kind of like a child that's abused. If a child comes to you and says that they're abused, you believe that child, and then prove it wrong or prove it right. And I think the same thing should happen with women that come out and say that they were sexually abused or whatever in any way. believe them, because the truth always comes out, you know. And if the truth comes out that they were doing this shady stuff, then they're the ones that damn, but it's not you because you try to insult or hurt someone's pain by not believing them. So, end of the day, me too, and men are awesome. Let them open the door for you. Let them, pull a chair out for you. Let them say, no, don't get up. Let me do this for you. Because if we start taking the manlyhood away from our men, what do we have left? What do we have left? A bunch of... Then we should all just be gay and lesbian or whatever, But not me. And I'll tell you straight up, totally bisexual. Love girls, love guys, but I love a man to be a man. I married one because I want him to be a man to me. I want him to work. I want to stay home and take care of my kids. I want him to open the car door for me when I get in the car. I want him to open the door at the QT as I walk in. I want him to be a man, to look at me and say, baby, I got this, And there's women, and I've been that woman that wants to do everything equally or do everything, period. But you can't judge people on what they want. And you can't degrade every man and take away their masculinity. Because a lot of them are, if we start looking at women, a lot of us are conniving and just stop. Just stop. Let's just be real. Knock it off. Me too.